1 month down, 11 more to go. It's already the close of January. And a lot of things are already in full swing. We successfully moved through our organizational meetings, and I think we're well situated for decision-making and action-taking in the coming year. One of our churches, this church, has already submitted their statistical tables. You were the first to do so in the district. But as a district statistician, I probably don't get to, claim that for us too much come district conference. Like last year, I'm planning to figure out who was the first person, not me, to finish the statistical tables and proclaim them district nerd. But Metropolitan is lagging a little bit behind as the whole, which worries me, but there's still a few more days left until the end of the month. Now, as I've sent out in some district missives, but just to remind us all of why we do this, the information compiled in those records is important for establishing our representation at jurisdictional and general conference. It helps determine how many delegates get sent from New York. It also helps us, our district superintendents, our cabinet, even your pastors, have a better understanding of the situation that our churches are in and the opportunities for ministry that might be there in our collective mission field. And yes, part of the tables are there to help us calculate apportionments for coming years. For those of you who are less familiar with what apportionments are, they're a relatively small tithe that we give out for the administration and ministries of the larger church, both at the conference level but also globally. When I briefly worked for the General Commission on Archives, the ability for us to have that huge repository of documents over there in Madison, New Jersey was made possible by the monies collected from congregations like ours and pooled together. General Secretary Dreff did a calculation at some point that she figured about half a penny from each tithe, each collection we make, eventually winds up at the General Commission on Archives and History. But this year I'm grateful to you and to our sister church that both of our congregations were faithful in remanding 100% of their responsibilities for 2024. Farther afield, the dates for the 2025 annual conference have now been set and announced, and it's going to be in Stamford, Connecticut again on June 6th through 8th. My birthday! That's right. I love it when my birthday falls on the annual conference. I get to celebrate it with all my friends and colleagues, and I think it's just one huge party, just for me. But I've already sent that information out to your lay member to annual conference, which this year is Annalisa Dillingham, and she and I will be slowly gearing up over the coming months for that event. It's important that you have representation at these events. Appointment season is in full swing, and there's a number of clear openings that have been announced. And as I've shared over the last few months, and again these last few weeks, I do not expect to be moved this year, though anything can happen. But I do anticipate some changes in the pastoral leadership of our cooperative parish. Our 6 churches situated across the shared mission field of southern Westchester County: Aldersgate and Ardsley, St. Paul's and Trinity, Memorial, and Valhalla. These times of transition can be difficult, but every change offers myriad opportunities. Every time I've had a transition in ministry, it's given me an opportunity to ask myself, who am I in this new place? How have I grown and been shaped since the last time I moved? What things has God stripped away in the refining fire? What new gifts have been awakened in my spirit? It's the same for all of us. It's the same for our churches, parishes, districts, and even conferences. in these times of change, who are we becoming in this new season? What needs to be let go and what needs to be embraced? Now, our epistle reading this morning, taken from 1 Corinthians, records the wisdom of Paul on the diversity of gifts. And he speaks metaphorically of feet, hands, ears, and eyes as the various limbs of the body, each suited to its own task, yet often disparaging or even jealous of the others. I've actually preached to you from this passage before. The lectionary repeats the cycle, and I even referenced this passage extemporaneously last Sunday, not realizing that it was coming up as the passage for today. But setting aside all the metaphorical body parts, Paul turns much more directly to the material needs of the church and how those roles are filled by individuals suited for the task. Apostles, prophets, teachers, workers of miracles, healers, administrators, and those who speak in tongues. Running a church is complicated. I don't just mean pastoring it. I mean, keeping this thing going is complicated. It has a lot of different roles for a lot of different people. And so Paul asks, are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? And the implied answer is no. Then he continues to ask if all work miracles or have the gift of healing, and the rhetorical answer remains no, which I am grateful for, since, to the best of my knowledge, I have yet to work a miracle or be credited with a healing. But I still hope to be of use for the kingdom. My gifts must lie elsewhere. And I think I do have gifts, as do you all. And thank God, because I'm going to need your help. We're going to need each other's help to accomplish mission and ministry in this place, moving forward, continuing to move forward. But also quite immediately, as I already suggested earlier. In just a few minutes, I'm going to need your help in praying for a miracle, in praying for healing for beloved members of our congregations. And since it hasn't demonstrated itself to be my gifting, it's got to be one of you. But to rein it back in, I'm also convicted this morning by a few lines from our gospel passage. Well, actually, a few verses further into the gospel passage than you already heard. But it's the same story, just continued on a few more lines. And these are the words from the mouth of Jesus as he preached and taught in Nazareth. I assure you that there were many widows in Israel in Elijah's time, when the sky was shut for 3.5 years and there was a severe famine throughout the land. Yet Elijah was not sent to any of them, but instead to a widow in Zarephath in the region of Sidon. And there were many in Israel with leprosy in the time of Elisha the prophet, yet none of them were cleansed. Only Naaman, the Syrian. And the people, when they heard that, were very angry. Now, we've been praying with great expectation that God will provide aid. It's been thematic of this month, and we've just today in our Joys and Concerns had other requests for healing. There's a lot of hurt going on. And we'll continue to pray for those things. We trust that God will send aid. But Jesus' point here, reflecting on the ministries of Elijah and Elisha, is that even when the situation was dire in Israel, even when there was suffering among God's people, God's consistent prophetic focus was always still on the mission to the poor and the widowed and the outcast and the needy on the fringes of society. Even as Israel was hurting, God's prophets were going to Zarephath, Sidon, Syria. Or as the commentary puts it, observe that Jesus does not state here that the prophets Elijah and Elisha went to Gentiles because they were rejected by the Jews. That didn't happen. Rather, they went because they were sent there by God. Jesus' audience is becoming more and more enraged as they realize that they will receive no special favors from him, and that he considers himself above home ties and traditions. It's a hard word. So let us this morning continue to collectively embrace each other's gifts, build up and pray for each other, but not as a people who are turned inward, as if expecting special favors, but as a people turned outward in mission to the world, knowing that God's abundant grace and mercy are available to everybody, not just in this sanctuary. Let us seek healing for ourselves, surely, but only as much as we are going out from this place to actively bring healing to the rest of the world. It's not mutually exclusive, and we're required to seek both. Amen.